Good morning. Happy International Women's Day. Happy Women's Month. It's March 2023. Can't see anything, but I noticed I have really dirty glasses, so clean those as I talk to you. I would like to talk to you today about my experience of being a woman, a girl first, and then a woman. It's complicated, you know? There we go. The whole boy, girl, man, woman, gender, sex, thing. It's one of our trials, isn't it, here as humans, figuring out this thing, making the best of it, whatever. I can tell you that although I've been quite the misfit my whole life with the whole autism, anxiety, depression, child abuse, hyperhidrosis extravaganza that my life has been, although I have very often not felt human, I've never not felt like a female of the species, a girl or a woman. That's one thing that's been a constant in my life, and I have great sympathy and empathy for people who are not, cisgender, who are not comfortable in their assigned gender. Forgive me if I'm using terms wrong. I'm 50, and as try as I may to be ethical and observant of people's choices, I do make mistakes. So, I have really good intentions, and I hope that you will understand that and bear with me in case anything I say should rub you the wrong way. I don't know that it will, but some of my earliest memories are of trying to emulate really glamorous women, particularly for you see children. I'm, as I mentioned, rather old. I was born in 1972, if you can imagine, in Texas, and it's in a small town, and it's very difficult to convey for us elders to all of you youngsters how different life was before the internet. I think that's really the biggest change. It's got to be the biggest change that's come about in my half century of life, because being in a small Texas town in the 1970s and 80s, you didn't know about the world. I mean, you tried to learn about the world. I tried to learn about the world from music but I mean, it had to be radio music, what they played on the radio, because you couldn't just find out about offbeat music in a little podunk town when you're like 10 and you don't have siblings, and you can't. Everybody around me was white. It was the most. It was not a good childhood for me, because the people around me were very racist and very misogynist. And the children, the little boys especially, in that Texas town where I grew up, said more disgustingly sexual, horrible, demeaning, disgusting things to little girls every day. Just a matter of course, laugh it off. When I was a little kid, and it was very upsetting because you couldn't tell. I mean, if you told adults, they would either say, well, they would blame it on me because I was very overdeveloped. I had really big boobs, and so they'd say, oh, well, she was tempting him, or, provoking him. Or if it was with the other little girls, they'd either say, oh, just laugh it off. He's just teasing you. He likes you. We're talking vile stuff about sexual fluids. These are like 8, 9-year-old boys saying this shit. So disgusting. Or else the boys would lie. They'd say, I don't say that. I don't even know what that means. I'm a little boy. Where's my mommy? So that, coupled with the fact that my father is an absolute and complete disgusting, misogynist, racist jackass, yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. And so it's interesting to me that I was so devoted to being a girl and to being female, even though it was not a good way to be. It seemed to me, as a little girl, that I had a very few choices to make. The women who I saw in my life were mothers. I didn't want to be a mother. Never wanted to be a mother. They were secretaries. Oh God, I thought I would rather die than be a secretary. Or a teacher. Same. Oh my God. I hated being a kid. I didn't want to be around other kids. I didn't want to be a teacher. Where I could be, this is where it started to get interesting to me. I could be a singer or a dancer, an entertainer, like Dolly Parton, like somebody like Cher, you know? Or, this was my other choice. I thought I could be a hooker. I thought as a little kid, those are going to be my choices. If I can't be an entertainer, I'm going to have to be a hooker, because I don't want to have that life that I see modeled for me as a little kid in a rural Texas town, you know? So miserable, so unhappy. My life dominated by these horrible males. Ugh. So I started really fixating as a coping mechanism, I guess. A healthy coping mechanism, I think, as a very little girl, on iconic women, famous women. I've already mentioned Dolly Parton a lot. She was obviously one. There was Olivia Newton-John, Cher, I've mentioned. Then when I started reading, it was like Madeleine L'Engle, who wrote A Wrinkle in Time, a whole bunch of other books. Laura Ingalls Wilder, because I was really into like the fantasy of living as a pioneer girl. Did I mention I'm autistic? And it just went on. And so I lived in this kind of fantasy land. Got really obsessed with Lady Diana before she married Charles. She was Lady Diana. And this was, you know, the kind of life that I lived. And these women, who I now call my Talus women, there are 50 of them. I've been collecting them mentally, if you will, through my whole life. They have been of immense help to me in my life. And I would love if you would check out the Talus Women page on my website, because it has, I'm almost done. I'm going to finish the group of 50 this month, because it's Women's History Month. So far, I've done 37 micro non-fictions about these women, about basically, and when I say micro, I mean 150 words. They're on Medium, and it's a publication called Short Form that it's really cool. You should check it out if you only have a tiny bit of time and you want to read just a nugget, if you will. You might want to check it out, because the stories are all super short. And I have written about 37 of my 50 Talus women. They're on Medium. And if you go to the link in my link tree, it simply says Talus Women. That will take you to the page on my website, which, by the way, is leahwellborn.net. The Talus Women page has 37 of the 50 women about whom I have written so far. I'll be doing the other 13 this month. One's coming out today. Sylvia Plath is coming out today. Look for her. So I bet that if you are a person who likes women's history and who has maybe some sort of a crush on one of a cultural icon or two, and I've got got some historical women in there too. They're all, you know, like I said, entertainers, because that was my thing when I was little. It still is to a degree. I love to be entertained. Who doesn't? And writers, you know, because that's my real thing, is writing. When I grew up and realized that I could write like a mofo, um, I became a writer. So I bet what I was going to say, that you will know and perhaps love some of the women who are amongst my Talis women. Perhaps you will learn of a woman who you might be inspired by. There are some lesser known women on my Talis women list. And there's women all the way back to errant. There it is. All the way back to, I think Jane Austen is probably the earliest one. Earliest woman on my list. It's not all the women I admire. And it's none of the, you know, like political world historical changing kind of figures, you know, like Cleopatra, Michelle Obama. Those are the two who came to mind, because that's not really my beat, you know. Even though I'm really interested in politics, I'm all about the arts. I'm all about history and social studies, if you will. So I didn't include those women, even though I admire Cleopatra and Michelle Obama an awful lot. So these are all artists, writers, entertainers, and they have just really, at many points in my life, saved me from myself, because, you know, it's not easy growing up as a woman, a hypersensitive, autistic, depressed, anxious woman with an abusive father in a small town. I get tired of going over all this stuff. But you know what? It's all good now, because I worked a lot on myself. And my Talis women have helped me through. And other women, you know, my mom. I love my mom so much. Even though there have been great swaths of my life, really the majority of my life, when I truly wished I had never been born. And I have to say that I did kind of hold that against my mom. I know it sounds wacky, but I've had a lot of mental issues. I've always loved her, and I've always known that she's on my side like nobody else. And if you don't have that kind of relationship with your mom, I'm really sorry, because it's a cool thing to have. Kombucha. And I'm very grateful for the women friends I've had in my life. I've had two really consistent women friends in my life since college. I met them in college, and we don't talk all the time, but I love them dearly. They've helped me so much, and they've been consistent, and they have always been there, you know. So Kate and Hannah, love you so much. So we've talked about Talis women, we've talked about my mom, we've talked about my girlfriends. Now I would like to spend just a little bit of time talking about how much I have learned from spiritual women who I've found on social media. Social media can get a really bad rap, and, you know, a lot of times it deserves it, but it, you know, it's like so much else. It's fraught. There's good and there's bad, right? So I have considered myself a witch, and I've followed a pagan spiritual path since I was 16 years old. So I'm trying to do the math in my head. 34 years. Longer than most of you have been alive, I reckon. And it can be a lonely one. You know, just going it alone. Like I said, without the internet at the beginning, trying to figure out what spirituality means to you, what being a witch means to you, and what in the same time figuring out what being a woman means to me. You know, so all that to say, it has been very refreshing at my ripe old age. I guess I was in my late 30s when probably in my 40s really, when I started following other, really powerful women, especially women, but also men, witches and spiritual practitioners online. And you would think it's all just a bunch of kookiness, but there's some real stuff out there. And, I'd like to think especially the women of color, spiritual leaders, spiritual influencers, witches, etc., who have helped me so much. Even they didn't even really know it a lot of the time, because I was just learning from them, just like maybe you learn from people on the internet too. So I would like to call out, shout out, whatever you say. Like I said, I'm old. Give credit to 3. I'll get my glasses on for this. I'm going to give credit to 3 women of color spiritual practitioners who have really, really, really helped me on my spiritual path, and I suggest that you look them out too. One of my goals, my main project right now, is working on my book called Empower Your Magical Self, because it's how I turned my life from a horrible, horrible disaster that I was about to check out of to a really wonderful place that I'm really happy to be. So that's my main project. But after that's done, I would love to start a podcast where I talk with spiritual leaders who are women of color about their practices. So that's a dream. I've never really told anybody else that. And, one of the first people I would feature, if she would be on my show, I would be so thrilled, is the Trap Witch. Oh, my God. She might be the wisest person I've encountered on the internet, for sure. She's amazing. So I really, really encourage you to check her out. And Tatiana, thank you. You're amazing. I'm happy to be walking the earth with you. Also, Juliet Diaz is a wonderful resource. She has just started a press called Spirit Bound Press. And she's what I look up to her. Check her out. And the third is the Hood Witch. She's Brie Luna, and she's brilliant, and she's beautiful, and she's constantly dropping wisdom and kindness. So I encourage you to check them out. Thank you. Thank you very much, 3 of you. You've been very helpful to me. Please be on my podcast when I start it. I forgot to mention that. Okay. So my makeup's only half done. I'm kind of like a little blind rat. But I'm going to sign off for now because I have talked a lot. But I will be around with women's fun Talus Women programming all day, and always posting little things about empowering your magical self. So I encourage you to look out for that, and for the Talus Women. Thank a woman in your life today. Thank yourself. Anyone who identifies as a woman, today is your day. Love you. Celebrate yourself. Go celebrate women. Be kind to women. Be kind to yourself. Love you. Bye.